Good morning, everyone. My name is Peter Bidewell, so I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Applied Blockchain. Applied Blockchain is a blockchain applications development firm. We've been around for about 2 years now, pretty much since the birth of Ethereum, and our focus is on smart contracts and the use of blockchain effectively as a distributed database. So today I want to go into some details about the work that we've done in applying the technology, actually building real-world solutions. So going past that conceptualization phase. So what we've seen over the last couple of years, actually, is this real focus on what is blockchain, what can it do, what is technology, and this kind of first step is, of course, important, but I think right now we need to focus on what is the next step, how are we implementing that technology, what is the genuine use case for businesses. There's no point talking about technology again and again until we actually start building things, and this is what I want to focus on today. So there's a couple of problems, I think, that are holding us back from that big leap. One of which is there's a huge void between the technical language that's used on one end and the business language used on the other. So you have these bunch of very, very smart people building out amazing technology, but not able to communicate the real value and the benefit of that technology to business heads, right? So what happens then is this giant gap means that businesses aren't able to really understand what the key value points are, where the return on investment is going to be, and therefore pay some attention but aren't quite sure how to move forward. What we're looking to do is to bridge that gap, is to build out solutions providing real-world use cases of actually what is possible when you're looking to build with technology. Okay, so the first step is, of course, understanding what the technology is. But the next step is also all the things that go into producing a real-world live production system. It's all very well and good having a blockchain solution that you've built in a lab somewhere behind closed doors that no public-facing consumer is ever going to touch. And this is quite dangerous, right? So the next steps are things like interoperability between different systems, enterprise-grade security, and also things like the privacy of data held in smart contracts on the blockchain. So rather than just talking about these things, this is what we've done. We've had to. By building out solutions that are in the public domain, being used by real customers, we've had to not just think about these things, but find solutions for these problems. How we've done that. So there are a good number of underlying platforms that everyone's quite aware of. The danger of these is that if you're trying to hardwire any application to the underlying platform, you're not future-proofing yourself as to any changes, right? At this moment, we have various different competitors, effectively, who one of them probably will win and become the ubiquitous standard of what blockchain platforms should be. But no one knows quite yet who that's going to be. And so placing your bets at this point on a winner is quite a dangerous thing to do. So instead of doing that, what we've done is we built a layer, a framework, if you like, that sits on top of any underlying platform, which means we can plug into the most mature and the best technology underneath that at any given time. All right, so at the moment, we work with Ethereum predominantly, but in 2 years' time, that may not exist. Or in 2 years' time, Hyperledger may become the absolute dominant platform. The trick here for us is that we're able to quickly swap out underneath and move to a different platform without affecting the stack on top. What it also means is that we're able to build much more quickly. By having done a number of different solutions for various different clients across various different industries, we've built out the kind of components, if you like, that are necessary to add in and build solutions very, very quickly. So we're only building the top 15%, not the entire thing time and time again. So we focus predominantly on the use of smart contracts, and I want to go into not just what these things are, because most people know that right now, but actually how we use them specifically inside of our own company. So just at the end of the last panel, we discussed the idea of data being on-chain versus off-chain. One option, there's kind of two schools of thought. One option is this kind of see you in court approach that I call it. And that basically is this referencing tool. You have the blockchain, the public blockchain, and you're time-stamping events and transactions onto that to prove that if something goes wrong, you've done everything right. And the only time you'd ever actually use the blockchain, therefore, is if something goes wrong and you need to go to court with someone. For us, the more useful approach to really leverage the technology is to have data stored on-chain. And I'm going to talk to you why. First of all, there's permissions. One of the big problems, especially for businesses, if you're going to have data stored on the chain, that data needs to have permissioned access to different parties on the same network. It's no good if everyone can see it. The current Ethereum model, for example, on the public chain is that there's this pseudo-anonymous ability to see all the transactions, but not the actual identity of the individual or the organization behind those transactions. And that doesn't sit well with businesses. Businesses want to say, we know exactly who's behind that transaction, but importantly, they shouldn't be able to give away their own data of, here's all the transactions we've done, here's the value, and so on. No business wants to do that. So there has to be a nice in-between. So what we've developed is a privacy capsule. And this allows for the permissioned access to specific components of data within a smart contract. Not the whole thing, but specific components. What this means, therefore, is you can have party A and party D having access to line item 4 and 6, but nothing else, for example, whereas party C has no access at all. The important thing here is dynamic access to data as well. It's no good if that's for the rest of time. The ability to change permissions as and when, depending on the different stage of a certain agreement or a smart contract process, is also very valuable, and that's what we've built into this. Leading on from that then, that's workflow. It's how you're using that data to enable interactions between different parties and to agree terms. One of the things that we're doing right now is not just talking to, but working collaboratively with various different law firms to understand the differences and the overlaps between what is a smart contract and also what is a legally binding enforceable agreement. And these two need to marry up in some situations. Insurance, for example, it's all very well and good gaining efficiency from the blockchain, but if you're not able to make a real agreement off the back of that is enforceable upon certain premiums for an insurance claim, then what's the point? So that's the next step. And finally, token transfer. I'm sure we've talked quite a lot about the idea of cryptocurrency versus tokens within smart contracts. And where we sit on this is much more towards token and the tokenization. And the reason behind this is that with crypto, there's a whole bunch of headache that is almost unnecessary at this point. Using tokens within smart contracts that represent or are pegged against fiat currency means you can have the same concept of an account, where you can move funds between different people on the same network, but purely it's in a closed environment, which means that when you're cashing out of that closed environment, a real payment is initiated. I mentioned before about interoperability. There's no need to have real cryptocurrency movements if you have the simulated movement of funds and of value through tokens, and then at the back end of that smart contract, you initiate a real wire transfer or a direct debit. So the key here is understanding what components are new, what's new from the blockchain, but then how that works with existing systems to make a perfect whole. So our focus really is much more about moving out of the lab, not focusing on just what is possible, what we're capable of building, but actually how these solutions are going to work in the wild. We want to take these things, and we have taken various solutions for various clients out there to be used by real customers in the real world. And this is an important step. So let me talk to you about a couple of them. I can't say too much at this point because we have a panel later where I will be chatting with a selection of our clients who we've built our blockchain solutions for. Now, these are real-world blockchain solutions, somewhat under development, but most of them are actually being used and are out in the public domain. So CETA is the world's largest IT company in the aviation industry. We worked together with them to build out a blockchain-based drone registry, which connects drone manufacturers, drone operators, and the drones themselves onto a single network. The key here for them is that you can have the regulator having real-time perspective on all the drones that are in the sky at any one time. It's a nice snapshot. The next is Signitize. I definitely can't say much about these guys, but they're here on stage later. And effectively, they are interesting for me because they don't use any form of fund transfer or currency whatsoever. They use the blockchain as a pure distributed database model where valuable data is shared between different parties on the network, and nothing else. And finally, we worked with the Bank of Colombia. For them, they had a consortium of various banks across South America that came together and had the permissioned access to specific components of KYC data, depending on what their roles were within the consortium. So here's a selection of the clients we've worked with so far. As I said before, we've built over 10 real-life working solutions across a number of different industries, ranging from banking, from various parts of financial services, trade finance, invoice financing, aviation, even recruitment. And the point here is that we're not focusing on blockchain as a means of transaction, but actually it's a way of improving business efficiency. Now that's anywhere, right? Any business can improve their efficiency and their workflow through automation. And this is what this technology enables. And that's what we focus on. We're also hiring. We're a small company, but we're hiring rapidly. If you're interested, come find me outside. We have a stand. And that's me. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Peter. That was really interesting. The question is more from the client side. What has sort of given people the courage to actually approach you to work on these projects and take them forward?
Sure. I think importantly, we try and stay quite far away from the crypto space, as I mentioned. And avoiding that headache means effectively we're operating as a distributed database. So all the regulation you might expect from operating in financial markets doesn't really apply. And we've been very careful with this, of course. The other factor is that we are actively speaking to the right people, so third-party auditors to make sure we're stress testing our tech stack and making sure we actually are at the enterprise-grade level of security. These kind of things.
For the examples that you mentioned of the customers, what made them go with blockchain rather than something else?
It's a really good point, actually. I think it was mentioned earlier on the panel that it's dangerous just to accept any new customer that thinks they want a blockchain solution. Actually, most solutions that we hear about with potential clients aren't right for blockchain. And we have to be very frank. As was mentioned, it's a dangerous thing for the industry as a whole, but also it's not a good sell. Right? If you build a company and you spend all this time and effort and money into building something that frankly could have been done on a normal database model, what's the point? So for each of these, we have first and foremost identified specifically that this cannot be done without a blockchain, or that there is a huge benefit by having a blockchain system. So let me try and think. The key one for us, let's say with signatized, which I think we'll hear from later, is about data reconciliation. Right? So the idea that everyone has access in perfect real time to exactly the same information. And that can't be done in the same way, not really, without a blockchain solution. You either have to have a centralized authority that holds all the information, which has its own problems, or it just can't be done. So for us, that was a really nice example because actually it's not riding the wave of the hype, but actually it's purely an application where the blockchain is a tool, a technology tool that is just better than other tools available at the time.
Have you thought about open sourcing the software that means that you can swap out the blockchain that you're using, like Ethereum, or are you aware of any other solutions?
It is open source. You can find it on GitHub.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
One more. Thanks. Earlier on in your presentation, you mentioned consumers. But as far as I can see, most of the business cases and examples that you've used are business to business at the moment. I mean, what kind of direct consumer use of blockchain do you envisage?
So there's a client who will be up on stage later. I'm trying to work out what I can say. They are building a financial institution which is customer facing. So it's pure B2C. So imagine it's effectively an app, similar to you have today, but behind that app is all the benefits of blockchain.